Get the fuck out of here, you little shit!
Killing a person ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head. Pow!
It doesn't matter who I am. I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real.
Man, that sure was scary. And damn it, this game is spooky too. Fatal Frame. This game is one of the big names in survival horror. And damn it, the series as a whole is really awesome. Awesome premise, great story, super scary visuals. The series as a whole is solid and consistent. Starting the series with the first one, released on March 4th, 2002 in North America on the PS2. The Xbox version came out a few months later. For this review, I'm using the Xbox version since it's the one I have, and it beats the PS2 graphically. 480 output, bruh. The presentation is great. Having based on a true story on the cover is fucking awesome. So getting to the game, it's a really awesome entry into survival horror. The controls, okay. It offers 4 control types, 2 being 2D and 2 being 3D. I really like that just holding square makes you run. Nico barely runs, but I guess it's an appropriate speed for being in a house, I suppose. You get caught on shit too easily. Every little corner causes you to run in place like an ass. It's really my only qualm. That and tapping backwards causes you to do a quick turn, which leads me to randomly pressing too low, causing me to spin around like a goon. In camera mode, everything works fine. Not being able to switch film types and specials in real time kinda sucks. Again, getting caught on shit is even easier since you can't really see where you're standing, especially in this fucking room. These planks are fucking assholes. Other than moving a bit too slow while using your camera, the controls function just fine. Now, when this game came out, it was such a new and original approach to survival horror. It still has a lot of the things that define the genre, of course, but the way it handles all these standard mechanics is really what makes it one of the most unique games in the genre. You still got tank controls, cinematic camera angles, limited items, spooky enemies, and all that other good shit. So let me get this out of the way. This premise is fucking great. A haunted Japanese mansion would use a camera to combat ghosts. I'm a huge fan of Japanese architecture, Japanese horror, and cameras. Ghosts, well, ghosts aren't real, but the very concept of them is pretty dang spooky. So right from the get-go, I have quite a bias from the start, but I'll be fair enough. So the game starts up and the words based on a true story are just chilling in the subtext. That line is so ridiculous in any context, since who fucking cares what it's based on? That is so open-ended it could literally mean anything. One of the programmer's legs felt a breeze and he couldn't explain it. Oh, ghosts. Then he decided to make a game about ghosts because of his experience. You see what I mean? Regardless, this is an awesome way to pull me in. I'll talk more about what it's possibly based on, but at a later time. So one of the first things you're likely to notice is there really isn't a weapon. Your only means of defense is a camera. A camera? With the power to exercise ghosts?
Yeah, ghost exercise!
This is one of my favorite ways a survival horror game has handled combat. It's in that perfect medium where it's not super comforting like a gun, but it's not just the nuisance of being completely defenseless. The camera provides your only defense, but since it is such an odd object to be your defense, it adds to the overall helplessness. So with this interesting concept for a weapon, the mechanics have to change with it. You can't just have a camera act like a gun. That'd be silly. The camera can be upgraded in a multitude of ways as well. You can use the points you've accumulated from ghost hunting and put them towards your camera's functions. You can also unlock bonus and special features that help immensely with those more tricky ghost fights.
Talking about you, motherfucker.
The combat in this game is awesome. So starting off with the basics, when in camera mode you get this little design around the borders of the screen which induces a very claustrophobic sensation. It reminds me of the very small field of view in Resident Evil 4. This really adds to the whole encounter. When I can't find the ghost in the limited area view, I really start to panic. So moving on, your camera has multiple film types with varying degrees of power. Well, there are more powerful types of film. None of them matter if you don't charge your spirit power meter before you take your shot. Even then, you're not still doing maximum damage if you don't wait for a...
Wait for it.
They don't actually refer to it as a fatal frame in this one. They call it a zero shot, but they do in the sequel. The fatal frames are just critical hits. Shit gets risky when you go for a fatal frame. Usually they're on the fringe of just fucking you up when you can land a critical.
You best be ready, party mouth, if you don't like being a second.
On the other hand, it's super satisfying when you get that critical, and you're rewarded for it. You know, having free range to aim and shoot a physical entity isn't really too hard, but ghosts! They phase in and out of sight, move in erratic patterns, warp behind. The whole combat is just really well thought out. The biggest problem with it is after you kill a ghost, you have to sit there and wait for them to be exorcised. It seems small, but when you're just trying to get to point A to point B, shit's really annoying.
Have fun with that speed run, nerd.
An interesting move on their part is making combat a focus versus evasion. There are some enemies which you can run past later in the game, but more often than not, you end up sealed in with the ghosts.
Oh God, let me out!
It's just something that stood out to me. To have a survival horror game where running past enemies tends not to be the optimal path to take. Another big thing I noticed was the backtracking. I'll admit, it is pretty excessive. You spend a majority of your time in the same mansion. Sure, you keep unlocking new areas pretty often, but it still feels a bit too small. For me, the awesome atmosphere really kept it from getting too stale, but they should have had more areas to explore. One thing I almost forgot to mention, the puzzles! They're really interesting. Sometimes it's just taking a picture of a particular area that is haunted to destroy a magic scroll that seals the door. Others are family crests that you slide these carvings in with kanji on them to match them up. There are so many variations of puzzles, it's really interesting. The difficulty gets harder as you go on, and none of them are too difficult. I feel they're at a great level. So, let's talk ghosts. Man, they sure are spooky.
Holy fuck! No!
Something about these ghost designs are fucking awesome. Some of them are a little bland, like there's one that's literally just a cloud. It's really stupid looking and I'm disappointed in it, at least to say. But overall, most of them are pretty unsettling. Some of them take form of how they died, and others are based off Japanese folklore. My favorite ghost is this fucking guy. This long arm motherfucker, he's creepy. All of the ghosts have a great design. They have this very real feel to them. It reminds me of Siren in a way, but much less Uncanny Valley. They kind of have that hyper-realistic look to them. I don't know. One of my favorite things about all the ghosts is they have their own unique attack and movement sets. No two ghosts behave the same, aside from the reuse of the same ghost. Thankfully, there are a damn good variety of ghosts, so you don't end up running into the same ghost too often. Just fucking click. At first, the ghosts seem really sporadic and pretty difficult, but once you kind of catch their groove, you can keep up with their wacky antics. Not only are they visually terrifying, the sounds that accompany them are equally unsettling. Panic-inducing music? Check. Disembodied voices saying creepy shit? Check. So, the ghosts are pretty much nightmare fodder. Great! Speaking of panic-inducing music, the soundtrack in this game is really good. The OST is super ambient instead of being of a more melodic approach. More strange noises than actual musical notes. All of them are quite memorable, oddly enough, but no real catchy melodies. The atmosphere in this game is nothing to laugh about. You really are thrust into a world of terror. No save room thing with calming music, nothing. Just you, your flashlight, and that creaking of the floorboards. I really have to say, for the first entry in the series, it really nails almost everything.
Now the story?
This game has a pretty good story. Actually, the story is really good. The game is split into 4 nights, so starting right away, we get a cutscene giving us a little background information on the characters and how they fit into all this. We get a nifty little flashback prologue where we play as Maifuyu, the brother. So he disappears and his sister, Miku, comes looking for him. So officially, the game has begun, and we're right back where we started. So as you explore the mansion, you start to get clues and hints from the ghosts. They start telling you about all these wacky rituals they do. You also find the ghosts of the people Myfuyu went in search of. So you kind of get two story arcs that tie in together. The wacky rituals they've been doing, oh no, pretty fucked up. They pick a sacrifice from birth that they keep isolated from the world so they can't develop emotional ties to others. They are then drawn and quartered to close off a portal called the Hell Gate to prevent any bad energy coming through, called Malice. Well, during the most recent ritual, the sacrifice, Kiri falls in love with a guy that looks a lot like Myfuyu. The master of the house has him killed to prevent any further attachment she's developed. Her having an attraction to him causes the ritual to fail. After being shamed, he goes nuts and kills everyone, including himself. The leftover Malice teams up with Kiri's soul, tainting it and causing her and the others to haunt the mansion. A curse is placed on those who enter to suffer a fate similar to hers, Myfuyu being the only exception since he looks a lot like her former lover. At the end, you have a choice of 3 endings. The normal ending, Kiri has all the evil exorcised out of her due to seeing her reflection in the holy mirror and resumes her position to stop the Malice from coming through. Myfuyu stays here to help, but... why? Seriously, why? This is a weird choice, and this is the canonical ending. On the Nightmare difficulty, both you and Myfuyu escape. Happy end. On the Fatal difficulty, they both escape, but after the credits, Kiri is reunited with her long-lost lover. So touching. It's truly a well-written story with loads of folklore, notes, spirits, and journals detailing a lot of past events. Not to forget the group that went in after the tragedy. They implement this really awesome tape player which just adds to the presentation. That tape hiss mixed with the odd deliveries is really unsettling.
It seemed dangerous to walk through the mountain at night, so we decided to spend the night here and continue our work.
After beating the game, you get a ranking, unlock a battle minigame, and some alternate costumes.
Something happened to my brother.
If you're wondering why this review took some time, well, it's called the fucking brutal difficulty mode that is the Fatal difficulty, you unforgiving piece of shit!
My other biggest complaint is the voice acting. It's pretty wooden, with Miku being the worst. She emotes as much as a rock. Referral. I mean, it's not atrocious, but it's a far cry being realistic. It kind of breaks some of the immersion. Not a lot, but a little bit. So, with the game out of the way, let's talk ports.
So, if you're like everyone else that I know, you actually owned a PS2 as a young lad or lass. So I assume you're familiar with the PS2 version. I was that weird friend that had an Xbox growing up. And damn it, I have no regrets. So the differences between the two aren't too cray-cray. The PS2 version has a simpler camera frame art than the Xbox version. For some ungodly reason, you can't use the left thumbstick to move on the PS2 version. The graphics, as usual when it comes to Xbox ports, look a little better. The lighting is a bit better, plus it has, like most Xbox games, 480p support with component cables. The textures look marginally better as well. Overall, on either console, the game looks great. The Xbox version has a few more features, like it has an extra difficulty called Fatal, where shit gets super scarce, and you get one-shot like a chump. It has a few more extra ghosts, and you also get one extra ending, which is kinda happier. If you're not sure which version to get, I can highly recommend the Xbox version. Now, if you're anti-Xbox for whatever reason, the PS3 does emulate PSX and PS2 games, giving you a bevy of options to enhance the game. You can add a screen filter on top of upscaling the game to 720p. Awesome!
So as you can see, I really recommend the Xbox port, just for the controls alone. On the PS2 version, having the right thumbstick move you in camera mode just breaks my brain, and I have a hell of a time playing it. Oh yeah, I almost forgot, that mischievous little subtext chilling at the bottom, based on a true story. Yeah, okay.
Gather around, children, for a spooky tale of ghosts in haunted mansions.
So what does that phrase mean in this context? Well, from all the information I could gather on the subject, it really doesn't mean too much, and wasn't even a thing in Japan. A lot of people believed it to be based on the Himuro Mansion, located in the outskirts of Tokyo, Japan. I can totally see why this story could have been the basis for the game. The gist is, in this here spooky mansion, they take part in these Shinto rituals called the strangling, where they pick a girl from birth that they use as a sacrifice in which they isolate her from the world to keep her from developing ties with anyone. The girl falls in love for this one guy and causes the ritual to fail. And the head of the family kills dude, this is literally the plot of the game. In an interview with Makoto Shibata, the director, he states the real inspiration came from two Japanese urban legends. The legends revolve around a mansion with underground tunnels and a violent past. Where this tunnel leads is to this talisman that apparently can't be obtained. You literally die if you try. I'm serious. Now, the story about the mansion itself is shrouded in mystery. Trying to get to the bottom of it all seems impossible, but after reading this, I'm calling bullshit. Seeing it wasn't even marketed in Japan like this, I can only assume the developers made this shit up. It's just too similar, and seeing as I don't know shit about Shintoism, you could fool me. That being said, it still is an interesting read.
So what we have here is the first game in a fantastic series. If you have not played this game, I highly recommend you do. If you like ghosts, Japanese lore, spooky games, or Japanese architecture, well, this is a game for you. It's a well-made game that's quite atmospheric and scary. Despite ghosts being a common topic in horror, it manages to feel new and original. And I have to say, this is potentially one of the scariest games I've played. Now, as I've said, most games don't truly scare me, but this game gets damn close. For the first game in the series, it nails almost everything, with only a few problems that stagger the gameplay. And the best part is, it's full of potential that's only taken advantage of in future installments. So, till next time,
We play with little girls.
Does it hurt? It does a little bit. I'm fine.
it's really fucking nice out over here.
Make sure you retract your scalpel when benching for proper form.
Just want you to know, I take time to write this fucking thing down on a piece of paper because I don't have a printer. And I sit here and memorize it because I don't like doing jump cuts. Learn your lines, motherfucker. What we have here is the first entry into a fantastic series. If you have not played this, it's highly recommended you do so. If you like ghosts, Japanese lore, spooky games, or Japanese architecture, well, this is the game for you. I couldn't find the line. Just not fair.